race them the way they thought was right. We have the same problems with math and science now. So this is where we were. And then we had a district system that came in 1805. All the states had this. Now under the district system, you could change districts just like you could change your parish. If you didn't like your district, all your money, your tax money for schools would go to your new district. If you didn't find one that you liked, you could create a new one. 10 people got together and they formed a new school district. We had 2,600 school districts in New Hampshire in the 1850s. We didn't, moan and groan over Common Core. Keep it, we'll move on. There was no fighting. That respects diversity. They preach diversity, but they don't respect it. So if the selectmen back then didn't acknowledge your petition to create a new district, they were fined $100 personally. I looked up those old statutes for one reason or another, because sometimes you got to dig into the history to figure out where you're going, where you came from, and what to fight back on. So this mess that we've got, it is deep. The Smarter Balance, they say that there was a big fight in the beginning, whether or not we are measuring knowledge, skills, and dispositions. Well, dispositions are your values, attitudes, and beliefs. There you're going back to that touchy stuff. We didn't like it. So here's a letter from the U.S. Department of Ed to our Department of Ed saying, even though we have this in our Smarter Balance, we don't use this. That's how they talk. Okay? We could get more specific and wordsmith here, but essentially what they say. This is your Smarter Balance website. And on the back they have a little chart. And they say, guess what they say about this year? They say after 2015 year is ended, next year our test will be verified and adopted. They're not verified. If you go look at our state law, 193C, it says they have to be valid, appropriate, they're not age appropriate, and objectively scored. They failed on all three. Those subjective little things, those dispositions, they're not very objective. Validated, they're not at all. Age inappropriate, oh, wait till you see this one. This is something back in December 18th of 2013, Nashua School, the middle school teachers, they came out anonymously because the teachers are afraid. They talk to us anonymously, but they won't put their name out there because they have to feed their kids. So they don't want to lose their jobs. And I understand Mr. C in Ipswich didn't lose his job, but he was talking too much and telling them about their right to refuse, and that's not very good. You can't talk. Anyway, so these teachers were saying that they were nearly unanimously against the assessments. They were shockingly negative experience, totally grade level inappropriate, difficult for some teachers with advanced degrees. Now when they're saying inappropriate, they're saying cognitively inappropriate. The mind develops at its own pace. Everybody's a little bit different. But if the mind can't wrap itself around it, the child can't do it. So the child gets stressed. The child assumes, an honest child, I'm stupid. So now you see the downward spiral. 3. Seems the test was designed more of a psychological or sociological experiment, not a measure of academic learning. Who created these tests anyway? It couldn't have been by a professional educator. This would be a crushing emotional experience for my students. It's nothing less than child abuse for my special ed students in my classroom. I refuse to administer this assessment to my students. That's why some are quitting. They have a moral opposition to this. So they sent that to the state, and the state said, we don't care about you. Because they're going to do this. It's all about the money. Somewhere on NPR one day I heard Heather Gage, DOE Director of Instruction, say that we're implementing Common Core regionally. I'm thinking, what the freak is regionally? I found the map. They have their regions all fixed up. You know those district systems, that constitutional guarantee of independence, so the state can't impose, indoctrinate is the word, what it wants our kids to learn? They've got a regional map. Aren't they so considerate? They've got it all 6 different regions, but one is inactive, so there's really only 5 regions. But that was a couple years ago. Who knows what's changed? First, flexibility waiver. Since the elementary and secondary school education, whatever this act, we have to get waivers. It should have expired, but now we're getting waivers from this because when they stopped the kneecap, they said, oh, we can't keep going. 75% of our students would be in need of improvement. Our schools are all failing. So kneecap is old, it's yesterday's news. We're on to Smarter Balance. We're on to this new stuff. So they got a waiver 2013 for 2 years. And in here, this is where I found out we have 5 regional liaisons. This is on page 31 of this nice document. And they're the newest addition to the support and outreach for implementing Common Core state standards. And they work side by side with leaders and practitioners to implement Common Core. Your school boards don't know about it, your legislators haven't a clue, but they are busy talking to, here I'll tell you, the regional liaisons participate in monthly superintendent, principal, and curriculum instruction and assessment meetings that take place in the respective regions. So they're sneaking into your districts without your knowledge or consent. The legislature didn't authorize this, but don't worry, they're federally funded. So they're coming in here to implement Common Core. And then the liaisons participate in bi-monthly meetings at the DOE. This is the commissioner's extended cabinet. RSA 22N tells her that she has 4 directors in 4 different divisions. It doesn't give her an extended cabinet. But don't you worry, that's federally funded. House Bill 142 in 2013, we barely knew what it was. It kind of went over through the House and all of a sudden we tried to stop it in the Senate. But it put through something that now they have to, your districts are required to develop a policy, an evaluation system. The system kind of has to be approved by the state. Now, remember that constitutional thing that we elect our teachers? It's an exclusive right. Why are we laying down and playing dead, guys? So we now develop assessments of our teachers based on all this nonsense. And this is from Manchester. See, they had some failing schools, some priority schools in 2013. So regional groups, the region is on everything. So they have 20% of the educator evaluation in the Title I schools are based on student growth using multiple student indicators, not just one test score, but it's all the Common Core stuff. And Title I, don't you worry, we're all going to be put into the Title I. Doesn't mean they all get free lunches, but they're somehow rewording it so that they can, you know, open the umbrella to fit us all in. We should all feel so happy. This is the letter that was in Dover in 2013. It's Heather Gage came out and said more than 75% of Granite State schools would have been labeled as failing in 2014. That's a terrible lie that we are telling the public, because we know 75% of our schools are not failing. That's their program. She's a failure. They're all a failure. But no, they're just out with the old and with the new. And they have credibility since they have a failed program. They can do another untested program, and this is going to be better. I mean, it just gets crazy. And then we have the PACE program. Oh my goodness. PACE. This PACE program, they want a new waiver. That's House Bill 323. That's Thursday. We are going to try to kill that bill, because in any of its permutations, and there's 5 or 6 of them, every time you turn around they've got a new one, but they want to give the department a blank check. They want her to run off with Arnie Duncan and get his approval and finish up the development of this PACE program. We've got it in 4 districts. And he gave her a letter on March 5th of this year, and saying that she can do it. So what did she do? The governor and the department wrote letters to these 4 districts, Rochester, Epping, Sanborn, and there's 4 of them. And she said they can break the law. They don't have to follow RSA 193C6, where they have to administer it in certain grades from 3 to 8. There's a couple of those grades, we're just going to throw them out. We don't have to change the law. We are the law. Why do you need House Bill 323? To change it to coordinate with what you're not doing anyway? You're already doing it first. I mean, isn't there a priority? You change the law and then you act differently. You set a good, no, they do it backwards. So it is just crazy. So we're up there and we're trying to talk to the different senators, because it got through the House. It was a bad bill. It talked about competency-based education, but they called it performance-based. Every time you turn around, there's a different name. Common Core is college and career ready. Because of course, they're very presumptuous titles. You do want to be college and career ready. Why wouldn't you? And since that lost favor, they went to next generation science or next generation social studies. and they're pushing those in. They've already approved it. I was up there at a board meeting, and they didn't put it in the minutes, but it's on the tape if you go back, I think, February, March, and they just said that we've already approved it in this meeting, and I'm thinking, there was no motion, there was no roll call, there was no vote. How did they do it? Oh, the chairman said they did it. Got it. So it is absolutely crazy up there, but if enough parents do one of two things, they either come and they talk, or they show numbers, or they stay at home, go on Facebook or go on our websites, get the information, and call and email these people. They don't usually get a lot of people to tell them about a bill. So they get 10 people, they're like, wait a minute, what did I do wrong? 40, 50 people, I have a problem. Okay, so then they're like, they question what they're thinking. So we've got the chairman of House Education took this bad bill, this performance education bill, put it on the House floor, walked in with, oh, I've got a new amendment, guys. And this one gave the department the blank check. We opposed the little bitty bill in committee, but once he got to the floor, he slammed it through. He says it's all about the money, or it's all about helping us. Oh, we're going to reduce testing. Isn't this wonderful? We have to have it 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 11th. That's us 7 times. And we're going to put pace in, because we're going to reduce testing. But see, this is a weekly test, so that's 30 times a year times K-12, not just the 7 years. Is that like 360 or more? And we're only going to get rid of 4 end of the years? This is Common Core math reducing? But Common Core math, I mean, Smarter Balance, we can refuse. We've got a tradition of refusing. It's getting onerous now, but we can do it. But if you've got 30 of them in here, and they're based on something called, oh, this is a new one, state graduation competencies. You see, there were 2 bills that Senator Stiles put in, and they failed. They failed twice. So she walked into the State Board of Education. She said, please do it anyway. This bill was to set up a commission to study how to implement competency-based education in New Hampshire. It failed miserably twice. The legislatures didn't want any part of it. So they put it in rules, because we couldn't stop it in rules. GELCAR is sort of like a paper legislative approval process. They kind of have to rubber stamp or file their objection and wait till it gets to court. So they put in rules about the competencies. Now in there they have graduation competencies. So we're getting closer, but a graduation competency is not as toxic yet. It's district-wide, and it's only high school. So that kind of makes sense. Because, you know, if you get your algebra, you get your AP, this or that, you know, you're competent, whatever. So they sold it. But in the PACE program, we can't have every district. It's too disjoint. We need a single statewide system. And don't worry, the commissioner's happy to go and rewrite it for us. But this single system is based on state graduation competencies. But there are none in statute. There are none in rules. And she doesn't even define it anywhere in her documents, because I've printed out every one of them. But it's sort of based on the achievement level determiners, ALDs, of the Smarter Balance. So it's another way of saying Common Core, because Smarter Balance is all Common Core, but we can't say Common Core anymore, because 2 bills just passed the legislature. One is going to the governor right now. Senate Bill 101 says the state can't require the districts to adopt Common Core. So we can't use that. That's a bad word. So now, when you join the PACE program, you're required to anchor all your assessments to these ALDs from the Smarter Balance assessment, which it'll say right in here about Smarter Balance. It's all Common Core aligned. So, well, you didn't hear Common Core. It's not Common Core, right? But don't worry, that's only for the districts that volunteer to get in there. Now, read the letter from March 5th again, this year, to our department, giving us a 2-year waiver. And it says, we are approving this based on your intent, Commissioner, of transforming all of your districts over to this single system under PACE. So it's a voluntary program because we can't require it. Now, there's going to be some incentives. I don't know when the next shoe is going to drop, but it's going to reduce testing, and we know that's not true. And it's locally designed. So when I tell you it's locally designed, you're thinking, thank God, I don't like Smarter Balance, at least we can do something locally. Look at this. In Rochester, they can't just do it in their district. They have to work in their region with the other different school districts and 2 nonprofits that are funded by, was it Nellie Mae and the Hewlett Foundation, some federal funding, or who knows where the money gets channeled. So those nonprofits will help them regionally develop this, and they have to be based on the Smarter Balance protocols, as I told you, and they come up with this, and then it has to be approved by the state, and then when they implement it, don't you think you can grade it yourself? It has to be regionally scored and graded, because that's just the way it is. This is how you locally design assessment, right? Have I convinced you that you need it yet? Yeah, and that's what they're pushing, because if we don't get the PACE program in there, they'll lose their waiver. They say, no, but if you read the letter, if you don't do that, then you gotta revert back to all those 7 Smarter Balances, but that's fine, because informed parents can opt out, refuse. Those 30 little ones based on the state graduation competencies, K-12, that are unauthorized, undefined anywhere. So if you don't take them, how do you go to the next level? You can't. In Rochester, the parents are saying, well, my kid, he takes his competencies weekly and he scores fine, and he's done. So he sits there with his busy work, and he's getting all kinds of stuff done. He's reading this and he's reading that. There's no instruction time, because they retest in classroom time. So these kids that didn't do it the first time, they take it the second.